Welcome back, everybody. You guessed it, solving two-step equations, round 2. This time we're doing it with rational numbers, although you can see that the notes look exactly, well, almost exactly like what you've seen. Some of the problems have changed because now we're using fractions and decimals, and there's a few differences in the notes, a few things that I want you to be careful of when we're working with fractions. And one of those it's in example 2. So the problems that we're going to work through together first, example 1 is 8 times n plus 16.2 equals 1.6. And then this one, our special one, is x minus 5 divided by 4 equals negative 7. Okay, so just like every other video, just like every other page of notes, you're going to draw railroad tracks on each side of the equal sign. You've seen that before. So drawing my railroad tracks here on the left example and drawing my railroad tracks here on the right. Okay. Step 2, we're going to circle the variable. Now in the other videos, in the one step, this part wasn't really important. In this case, in two-step equations, this part is very important that you don't skip it. We're going to circle the variable and anything attached or grouped with it. So we're going to circle the variable and anything attached or grouped with it. And what I mean by that is, look at example 2. Nothing's attached to x. X minus 5 is all being divided by 4, but that's x minus 5, not just x being divided by 4. So this example, there's nothing directly attached to the x, but x is in a group. It's in the group of the numerator of our fraction. X minus 5, that's the top group, and 4 is our bottom group. So I'm going to actually circle x minus 5 because that's a group. And on the left, this is more like what you're used to seeing. 8 is being multiplied by n. They're attached to each other. So this is what we're really going to want to keep an eye out for. It's not attached to x, but it is grouped with x, like there were parentheses on the sides of it. Okay, so that's our special circumstances. Step 3 here says it's a little bit different than what you saw before because of this grouping situation. It says to undo what is not grouped with the variable first or circled. Because we've circled the groups and we've circled what's attached, we'll undo what is not circled with the variable first. And I put a special note here that usually we add and subtract first unless the variable is grouped in the numerator like this one. Okay? So if I undo what is circled with the n, I'm getting ahead of myself. If I undo what is not circled with the variable first, in example 1, n and 8 are circled, so that isn't what I undo first. What I need to undo first is what's not circled, and that's adding 16.2. So let's subtract 16.2 and subtract 16.2 from both sides. So my adding 16.2 and then subtracting it on the left makes it go away, and I'm left with 8 times n being equal to 1.6 minus 16.2 is negative 14.6. And I want you to plug that in your calculator and make sure that we have it correct. So pause the video if you need to. All right. Step 4 says to undo what is blank slash blanked. So we're going to undo what is attached slash grouped with the variable last, which just means whatever's in the circle. That's what we're undoing last. Okay, so in example 1, 8 times n is grouped. It's circled. It's attached. So now that we've undone the minus, or the adding 16.2, we can undo this part, the 8 times n. So the inverse of timesing by 8 is to divide by 8. So on this side, my 8's go away, and I'm left with n being equal to negative 14.6 divided by 8. Pause, plug that in your calculator. you should get negative 1.825. Now I know I just gave you the answer, but I do want you to take the time to plug it in your calculator and make sure that you're doing it correctly, that you know how to plug it in and get the right answer. All right, now let's do those same steps in example 2. I'm supposed to first undo what's not circled or grouped with X. So normally I would undo addition or subtraction, but those are in the circle, and then I'm dividing by 4. So in this case, I undo the dividing by 4 first. So I'm going to multiply by 4 and multiply by 4. I know that's going to be a little bit confusing, and that's why I'm having you circle it. Whatever's in the circle, you undo last. So we divide by 4 here, so we're going to multiply both sides by 4, which means those go away, and I'm left with x minus 5 equals negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. Now I can move on and get rid of this minus 5. And I do that by adding 5. Those go away, so I'm left with x. But on this side, I also need to add 5. Negative 28 plus 5 is negative 23. Pause it, plug all of this in your calculator, make sure that you're getting the same answers. Make sure that you're doing it correctly before you have to try this on your own. All right, now step 5 says to check your, there's 2 blanks here. Normally I tell you to check just your solutions, but I want you to go back and check your signs and then your solution to make sure you didn't make any mistakes. And what I mean by that is this was adding 16.2, I minus 16.2. That was correct. This was 8 times n, so I needed to divide by 8. Those were the correct signs. I didn't misplace any negatives. On this one, I multiplied by 4, which is what I should have done. This isn't a negative 4, so it was a positive 4. And a negative times a positive is a negative, so that's correct. X plus 5 on both sides, plus 5 on this side. I'm going to check my calculator, make sure I put the signs in, and I did. Now I want to check my solution. So just go through quickly, look it over, make sure there aren't any obvious mistakes with your negative signs, and then go ahead and plug it in like we have in every other problem. Over here, 8, instead of n, I'm going to plug in negative 1.825, and then I'm going to add 16.2. And I want that to equal 1.6. So when I go through, pause this, put this in your calculator, and see if it equals 1.6. When I put this in my calculator, I got 1.6 on the left, equaling 1.6 on the right. So I know I did it correct. Same thing over here, x minus 5 divided by 4, but we think x is negative 23. So negative 23 minus 5 divided by 4 equals negative 7, we think. Plug it in your calculator, pause the video, make sure that that came out correctly. All right, so when I put it in my calculator, negative 23 minus 5 divided by 4, I get negative 7 on the left, which is equal to the negative 7 on the right. So I know that my answer is correct. I checked my work. All right, let's move on to the together problems. We're going to go through these again kind of quick. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it. If you need to rewind and go back and see something again because I went too fast, you can rewind the video as much as you need as well. Okay, so problem number 1, step 1, railroad tracks. Then I need to circle what's attached to my X. And in this case, it's a 4. And then I'm going to undo what's not attached. So I'm going to minus 16.4 because I'm plussing 16.4. So minus 16.4, those go away. I'm left with 4 times x equals negative 3.6 minus 16.4 is a nice number, negative 20. Now I can undo this 4 times x, which means I have to divide by 4, and those go away. So I'm left with x equals, if I divide negative 20 by 4, it tells me that x is equal to negative 5. I think, sorry that's kind of messy, x is equal to negative 5. I think that's what my answer is. So I'm going to plug this back into my equation, and I'm going to check my signs. I added, so I subtracted. I was multiplying by 4, so I divided by 4. I minused over here, divided by 4. I didn't mix up any negative signs, so I'm okay. So let's plug it in. 4 times x, so times negative 5, plus 16.4. I want to know if that is equal to negative 3.6. So plug that in your calculator, pause the video, and see if you have the right answer. So when I paused my video and plugged this in, I got the right answer. I have that negative 3.6 is on the left, and that's equal to the negative 3.6 on the right. So x is negative 0.5. I feel pretty good about that. All right, number 2, railroad tracks first, and then I'm going to circle whatever is happening to m. M, we're multiplying by 1/2. That's what's grouped, that's what's attached to my m, and it's a positive 1/2, so that's easy. And to undo, step 3 is to undo what is not circled. So what's not circled is this minus 4/5, which means I need to add 4/5 to both sides, and those will go away. And on this side, I need to add 4/5. Negative 1/2 plus 4/5. Pause your video, put that in the calculator, and you should get 3/10, and that's equal to my 1/2 m. Now step 4 says to undo what's in the circle, which is that timesing by 1/2. And if you remember from our last video, to undo timesing by a fraction, we're actually going to times by the reciprocal. We're not going to divide by 1/2. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2/1. So those will go away. And on this side, I'm going to multiply by 2/1. And if you pause, put that in your calculator, m is equal to 3/5. We want m to be 3/5. I'm going to check my signs. I added, that was correct. I divided by a positive, that was correct. So I've kept my signs okay. I have a positive times a positive, so my answer is a positive. I feel pretty good about my signs. Now I need to plug it in. So negative 4/5 plus 1/2. Instead of m, I'm going to put 3/5. So 1/2 times 3/5. And I want to see if that is equal to negative 1/2. Be really careful when you put this in your calculator. You can't do negative 4/5 plus 1/2 and hit enter, because in the problem, this needs to be multiplied together first. So when you put it in your calculator, make sure you put the entire thing in your calculator. Negative 4/5 plus 1/2 times 3/5, and then hit enter. So pause and try that. I got negative 1/2 on the left being equal to negative 1/2 on the right. So I know that my answer is correct. M is indeed 3/5. Okay, problem number 3, railroad tracks. I'm going to circle what's attached or grouped with my x. X plus 7 is all being divided by 3, so that's not grouped, but the plus 7 is actually grouped with my x in the numerator. So that's what I'm going to circle. And now I need to undo what's not circled, which is dividing by 3. So to undo dividing by 3, I'm going to multiply by 3 on the left and multiply by 3 on the right. So I get x plus 7 is equal to a negative 11 times 3. I'm going to be really careful with my signs. A negative times a positive is a negative, and 11 times 3 is 33. So I should get negative 33. Now I can go ahead and undo this plus 7 by minusing 7 from both sides. So those go away. I get x equals negative 33 minus 7. Pause, put it in your calculator. Make sure that you get negative 40. And I think that's my answer, but I am going to go back and plug it in. Instead of x, I want negative 40. So negative 40 plus 7, all divided by 3, equals negative 11, I think. Now this one, again, we have to be careful. If I put negative 40 plus 7 divided by 3 in my calculator, if I type it like this, negative 40 plus 7 divided by 3, if that's what you have in your calculator is going to divide by 3 first. But that's not what it should do first, because negative 40 plus 7 is in a group. So to make it look like my picture on my paper, I'm going to use my fraction button. On top, I have negative 40 plus 7. And on the bottom, I think that's a plus sign. Is that a plus sign? Negative 40 plus 7, and on the bottom, I have 3. And when I hit enter, it's going to do it correctly for me. It's going to say that my answer is negative 11, which is what I wanted it to be right here. So I have negative 11 on the left is equal to negative 11 on the right. All right, now it's your turn. You're going to pause, try these problems, make sure you follow all the steps. Circle what's grouped or attached to the variable. Be really careful that you undo the operations in the correct order. When you get to number 2, remember how to undo dividing by a negative half. We want to undo that by multiplying by its reciprocal. So be careful on that problem, and if you make a mistake, you'll find it when you go to check your answer. But there's a good chance some of you will make a mistake in that one. And same with number 3. What is grouped with the x? Make sure you're careful about what is actually grouped with the x on that one, and then check your answer. Good luck to you. We'll see you in a few minutes.